Drop everything for a second. Seriously, sit down, clear the distractions, and lock in. Because what's happening inside the Indiana Fever front office right now is a brutal, real-time lesson in how business actually works at the highest level. And it's not pretty. This is corporate reality at its coldest. You do not turn against the very force driving your success. The Fever are learning that lesson the hard way, because here's the truth they can't ignore anymore. This fan base isn't loyal to the franchise first. It's loyal to Caitlin Clark. And in this moment, those fans are making one thing crystal clear, loudly, aggressively, and most importantly, financially. If the organization even appears to go against their superstar, the response isn't just outrage, it's economic pushback. Ticket sales, engagement, attention, it all shifts instantly. This isn't just noise, this hits the bottom line. Welcome back to WNBA Pro, the one place on YouTube where nothing gets watered down. No PR filters, no protecting narratives, no playing nice for access. Just straight fact-driven breakdowns of the business, the strategy, the coaching decisions, and the billion-dollar ecosystem behind the WNBA. So if you want the real story, not the polished version, make sure you're subscribed and notifications are on, because the Indiana Fever have officially stepped into the consequences phase of their 2026 offseason decisions, and things are spiraling faster than anyone expected.
You're over being called a racist? Just that quick. Interesting. Okay. Must be nice. I don't get down. I'm not forgiving that. Okay. That's not going to happen. So, and never mind the logistical.
To really grasp how massive this mistake is by the Indiana Fever front office, you have to zoom out and look at the bigger picture. This goes way beyond a few upset fans arguing online. What we're witnessing is a major shift in power between a team and the people who financially sustain it. Because the reality is, the Fever don't operate like a typical franchise anymore. This is no longer just about the logo or the city. It's about Caitlin Clark. Look at the numbers and the timeline. Before Caitlin Clark arrived, Indiana was barely part of the national conversation. They were sitting near the bottom of the standings, struggling to fill seats, and getting little to no national attention. Tickets were hard to move, viewership was low, and the franchise simply didn't carry weight. Then everything changed. Instantly, Clark stepped in and flipped the entire business model on its head. Arenas started selling out across the league. Games had to be relocated to larger NBA venues just to handle the demand. Her jersey sales exploded within hours. Television ratings surged. In a matter of months, the Fever transformed from an afterthought into the most watched and most valuable spotlight in the WNBA, and that surge can be traced back to one player. So when a fan base that's this invested, this passionate, and this financially influential sees the team use the 10th overall pick on Raven Johnson, the reaction isn't mild frustration, it's full-blown backlash. And context matters here. This isn't just any rookie entering the league. Raven Johnson and Caitlin Clark already have a well-documented history going back to the 2023 Final Four. That viral moment where Clark waved her off at the perimeter didn't just live on as a highlight. It sparked a rivalry that fans haven't forgotten, but the tension didn't stop there. Not long before the draft, Johnson appeared on a widely viewed podcast and openly criticized a large portion of Caitlin Clark's fan base, calling them toxic, labeling them as bullies, and even suggesting elements of racism. Whether people agree with her or not isn't the point here. From a pure business perspective, this is where the problem becomes obvious. You don't spend a first-round pick on a player who has just publicly clashed with the exact audience driving your ticket sales, your merchandise revenue, and your overall growth. That's not just a questionable decision, it's a breakdown in basic PR strategy.
Bigger than 4 letters. Hopefully Snoop Dogg doesn't come for that. Wow. So they went on social media asking for you to buy tickets as a consumer of their product. Ooh.
Drafting Raven Johnson may have lit the match, but what came next is what really blew the situation wide open. At the draft press conference, head coach Stephanie White stepped in front of the mic and, instead of calming things down, made it significantly worse. This isn't just about roster decisions anymore, it's about how those decisions were communicated. When asked about how the guard rotation would shake out, White didn't reassure anyone. She laid out a vision that raised even more questions. She described veteran Ty Harris as a combo guard, then mentioned mentioned that Caitlin Clark can operate both on and off the ball. After that, she highlighted Raven Johnson as a true point guard who is most effective with the ball in her hands. And to top it off, she framed this added depth as a way to give Kelsey Mitchell more opportunities to rest. Now really think about what was just said. At no point did she clearly establish the one thing fans, and honestly, the entire basketball world, expected to hear that Caitlin Clark is the unquestioned floor general and the offense is built around her decisions. That statement never came. Instead, what was presented sounded like a system where one of the most gifted offensive creators in the game is being shifted off the ball to make room for a defensive-focused rookie and a supporting veteran. That's where the real frustration is coming from. And here's the part that isn't being talked about enough. From a pure basketball standpoint, taking the ball out of Caitlin Clark's hands isn't just questionable, it's a fundamental mistake. When she's running the offense, her presence alone bends defenses. Teams pick her up near half court, sometimes even farther, because of her deep shooting range. That kind of pressure creates space everywhere else. Easy looks inside, open shooters on the perimeter, and constant breakdowns in defensive structure. Move her off the ball, and you're removing that pressure. You're taking away the engine that makes everything else work. Today's fans aren't guessing, they're watching the numbers. They've seen how the offense performs when Clark is orchestrating versus when she's used like a traditional off-ball shooter. The drop-off is real, so when Stephanie White openly talks about implementing a system that leans in that direction, fans don't see it as experimentation, they see it as neutralizing the most dangerous weapon the team has.
Kelsey Mitchell back here. Wow. What? Guys, there are signs. There are signs now. I'm not sure Caitlin Clark's going to be on this team.
And this is the moment where a basketball debate stops being about X's and O's and turns into a serious business problem, because fans aren't just venting online anymore. They're taking action with their wallets. What you're seeing right now looks a lot less like frustration and a lot more like a coordinated pullback in spending. Not long ago, the Indiana Fever were dealing with the opposite issue. Season tickets were in such high demand that there was a waiting list. That's a rare position. When demand outweighs supply, you're sitting in one of the strongest financial spots any franchise can hope for. But here's where the front office misread the situation. They acted as if that demand was tied to the brand, the team, the logo, the organization. In reality, that surge was driven by one name, Caitlin Clark, and now the market is correcting that assumption in real time. There are growing signs that season ticket renewals have slowed down. People who were waiting in line for tickets are now hesitating or flat out declining when contacted. The resale market, which was once flooded with high-priced Fever tickets, is starting to lose momentum. What used to be a seller's market is suddenly cooling off. In response, the organization appears to be shifting into recovery mode, rolling out more aggressive promotions, pushing group packages, and ramping up marketing efforts to reignite interest that once came naturally. And the irony here is hard to ignore. The front office had multiple warning signs. The controversy surrounding their first-round pick wasn't exactly hidden. The messaging around Caitlin Clark raised immediate concerns, yet those risks were brushed aside. Now, they're in a position where they need the same fan base, some of whom felt alienated, to re-engage, spend money, and support a rapidly growing payroll. That's not just a PR misstep. From a business standpoint, it's a serious breakdown in judgment.
Tards. Right there. Is this a sign? Are they pushing her out of the franchise? God, if you own this team, you better wake up. Clark should leave now. You've got the dumbest front office.
Now we have to address the mindset at the top. Because this didn't happen by accident, decisions like this reflect how leadership is thinking, and that puts the spotlight directly on General Manager Amber Cox and President of Basketball Operations Kelly Krauskopf. There's a pattern you see across a lot of front offices. Over time, leadership can get insulated. They start trusting their internal evaluations more than the reality outside the building, and fans get viewed as overly emotional voices who will ultimately support whatever product is put on the court. court. That's the miscalculation here. The assumption seemed to be that they could prioritize a defense-first basketball move, overlook the obvious PR fallout attached to it, and still expect the fan base to fall in line, as if loyalty to the jersey would outweigh everything else. But that's not how this works anymore. The Caitlin Clark audience doesn't behave like a traditional fan base. It's enormous, it's engaged, and it moves with purpose. Most importantly, that loyalty is centered on her, not the franchise, not even the league as a whole. A large portion of these fans didn't grow up following the WNBA. They weren't lifelong Fever supporters. They showed up because of Caitlin Clark. That's the connection. And when your audience is built around an individual like that, the margin for error changes completely. If fans feel like that player isn't being put in the best position to succeed, or worse, that she's being minimized or mishandled, they won't just complain, they'll disengage. And unlike legacy fan bases tied to decades of tradition, this group doesn't have deep-rooted loyalty holding them in place. Their support can shift just as quickly as it arrived.
A lot of people believe that she may be headed to playing small forward. Man, wow. No thanks. I'd like to see Caitlin Clark be Caitlin Clark. Not happening on this team with this coach and with this front office. Great, another year of Stephanie White sabotaging the face of the...
Now take a step back and look at the bigger picture, because this situation doesn't just affect one team. It has ripple effects across the entire league. The WNBA recently locked in a massive 11-year media rights deal worth over $2.2 billion. That kind of agreement isn't built on hope. It's based on projected growth, audience demand, and star power. And if we're being real, a huge part of that valuation is tied to one player, Caitlin Clark. Networks didn't invest billions to air a system where Clark is standing off to the side while others control the offense. They're paying for the spectacle, deep-range shooting, elite playmaking, and the kind of must-watch moments that bring in millions of viewers. So if Indiana's approach starts impacting ratings, especially if fans begin tuning out in response to how she's being used, that doesn't just hurt the Fever, it sends shockwaves through the league. Broadcasters notice, advertisers notice, and when those numbers dip, the reaction from business partners is immediate. That's what makes this such a risky situation. The Fever front office isn't just making a basketball gamble, they're potentially putting pressure on the financial momentum the entire league is trying to build. Now, to be clear, we're probably not heading toward empty arenas. Caitlin Clark is too big of a draw for that. Casual fans will still show up, tickets will still move, and the spotlight isn't disappearing overnight. But what is happening right now matters. Season ticket holders hesitating, waitlist demand slowing down, core fans pulling back. That's not random. It's a signal, a very clear one. It's the most invested segment of the audience drawing a line and saying there's a limit, and from their perspective, the organization is getting dangerously close to crossing it.
At small forward and push, that boring brand of hack and grind basketball everybody hates. Oh, God. The Indiana Fever are getting smashed. That's crazy. I mean, woo-wee. I cannot.
So how do the Indiana Fever clean this up before it gets any worse? It's actually pretty simple, and no, it has nothing to do with flashy promotions or last-minute ticket deals. This isn't a marketing problem, it's a leadership and clarity problem. Stephanie White needs to step in front of the cameras before the season tips off and deliver one clear, direct message. Caitlin Clark is our point guard. That's it. No extra qualifiers, no vague talk about flexibility or shared responsibilities, no corporate phrasing, just a firm statement that the team is built around its franchise player and her strengths, because right now that clarity is missing and the silence is only making things louder. The longer the organization avoids that statement, the more frustration grows and the more it starts to impact the business side. Fans aren't confused, they're waiting for confirmation, and until they get it, the disconnect continues. The clock is ticking too. The Fever opened their 2026 season on May 9th and training camp is right around the corner. Between now and tip-off, this organization has to decide decide what identity it wants to commit to. Is this a team built to maximize one of the most electrifying offensive talents the game has ever seen? Or is it going to lean into a system where roles are constantly shifting, the ball is spread around, and its biggest star is just another piece in the rotation? Because the fans have already made their stance clear, they're backing Clark. Now the real question is whether the front office is willing to do the same. We'll be watching everything closely, ticket trends, press conferences, lineup decisions, because what happens next could define not just this season, but the direction of the franchise. This is WNBA Pro. If you're here for unfiltered, data-driven breakdowns that go beyond surface-level takes, make sure you're locked in. Subscribe, turn on notifications, and don't miss what's coming next. Now I want to hear from you. Where do you stand on all of this? Are fans overreacting, or is this a real turning point for the Fever? And do you think the organization adjusts or doubles down? Drop your take below, let's get into it.